The sun was setting over the small town of Ridgewood, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink as Tom Wilson wiped his grease-stained hands on an old rag. It had been a long day at Wilson's Auto Repair, and Tom was looking forward to grabbing a cold beer and catching the baseball game on TV. At 36, he had owned his modest shop for nearly a decade, tucked away on the less busy side of town where rent was cheaper. "Almost done there, buddy?" called Pete, Tom's only employee, who was already hanging up his blue work shirt. "Yeah, just finishing up Mrs. Henderson's invoice. You head on home to your family." Tom smiled, though his eyes betrayed his exhaustion. Business had been slow for months, and he was barely keeping the lights on. 3 canceled appointments that week alone had him worrying about making rent. Pete nodded and headed out, leaving Tom alone with the familiar smells of motor oil and metal. He glanced around his shop with a mixture of pride and concern. The place wasn't fancy. Concrete floors stained with years of oil spills, walls covered in vintage car posters and tool racks, and 3 service bays that had seen better days. But it was his, built from nothing after years of working for others. Tom was just about to lock up when he heard the unmistakable sound of a car in distress, a high-pitched whining followed by clanking that made him wince. Through the large garage doors, he spotted an old blue Honda Civic limping into his parking lot, smoke billowing from under the hood. "That doesn't sound good," he muttered to himself, setting down his keys and walking outside. The car jerked to a stop, and a woman jumped out, panic written across her face. In the back seat, 2 small children peered curiously through the window. "I'm so sorry," the woman said breathlessly, pushing strands of brown hair from her face. "I know you're closing, but I didn't know where else to go. It just started smoking on the highway." Tom nodded, already moving toward the hood. "Let's take a look." "I'm Tom, by the way." "Lisa," she replied, relief washing over her tired face. "Lisa Chen. Those are my kids, Zoe and Tyler." Tom waved at the children, who shyly waved back before popping the hood. A cloud of steam greeted him, and he stepped back, waiting for it to clear. Lisa stood beside him, anxiously checking her watch. "I'm already late for my shift," she said, more to herself than to Tom. "My boss isn't going to be happy." As the steam dissipated, Tom leaned in to inspect the engine. It didn't take long to spot the problem: a busted radiator hose and a belt that had seen better days. "Not a simple 5-minute fix. You've got a blown radiator hose and your timing belt's about to go," he explained. "That's why it's overheating." "Where were you headed?" Lisa sighed, pulling out her phone. "The Golden Spoon Diner. It's my second job. I just moved here 3 weeks ago, and I'm still trying to get settled." She glanced back at her children. "Let me call my neighbor to see if she can watch the kids while I get a tow." Tom looked at the worried faces of the children, then at Lisa's worn shoes and the textbooks visible on the passenger seat. Something about her determination struck a chord with him. "The Golden Spoon's about 15 minutes from here, right?" Tom asked, making a quick decision. "Tell you what, I can fix this right now. It'll take about an hour." Lisa's eyes widened. "Really? That would be amazing, but I can't afford much right now. Could I maybe pay you in installments?" Tom was already reaching for his tools. "Let's just get you back on the road first. We can figure out the rest later." While Tom worked, Lisa made a quick call to her boss, explaining the situation. Tom overheard enough to understand she couldn't afford to lose this job. The kids eventually climbed out of the car, curious about the garage. "Are those real race cars?" Tyler asked, pointing to posters on the wall. "Sure are," Tom replied from under the hood. "That one there set a speed record at Daytona back in '98. As he worked, Tom learned more about Lisa. She had moved to Ridgewood after a messy divorce, hoping to finish her nursing degree while working 2 jobs. The car had been giving her trouble for months, but every spare penny went to rent and her children's needs. "My dad was great with cars," she told him, handing Tom a wrench when he asked for it. "He taught me the basics, but nothing like this. He always said a good mechanic is worth their weight in gold." "Your dad sounds like a wise man," Tom smiled, connecting the new radiator hose he'd pulled from his inventory. An hour later, the car was running smoothly again. Tom had not only fixed the radiator hose, but also replaced the worn timing belt that would have left Lisa stranded within days. He'd thrown in an oil change too, noticing it was long overdue. "How much do I owe you?" Lisa asked nervously, reaching for her wallet. Tom hesitated. The parts alone cost nearly $100, not counting labor. Looking at her worn purse and the children yawning in the back seat, he made another impulsive decision. Consider it a welcome-to-town gift, he said, surprising himself. Just pay it forward someday when you can. Lisa stared at him in disbelief. I can't accept that. The parts alone must have cost. I've got plenty of spare parts, Tom lied smoothly. Really, it's no big deal. But I would appreciate some business if you know anyone who needs car work. Lisa's eyes glistened with unshed tears. Thank you. You have no idea what this means to me right now. She reached out and squeezed his arm. My kids and I won't forget this. Tom felt an unfamiliar warmth spread through his chest. It had been a long time since he'd done something purely kind without thinking about the bottom line. His own father had been a hard man who taught him that nothing in life comes free, but something about Lisa's situation had touched him. You better get going, he said, suddenly self-conscious. Don't want you to be any later for work. Lisa nodded, gathering her children and helping them back into the car. I'll find a way to repay you, I promise. Just drive safe, Tom replied with a genuine smile, watching as she started the engine. The Honda purred to life, no more concerning noises or smoke. As the blue Civic pulled away, Tom waved to the kids who pressed their faces against the back window. He stood in the parking lot long after the taillights disappeared around the corner, feeling a strange mix of emotions he couldn't quite name. Back inside, Tom locked up the shop and gathered his things, glancing at the empty parts shelf where the radiator hose and timing belt had been. Money was already tight, and his accountant would certainly lecture him about giving away free services. But for the first time in months, Tom felt good about his work. Really good. That night in his small apartment above a local hardware store, Tom skipped the beer and baseball game. Instead, he found himself thinking about Lisa and her kids, hoping they were okay. He thought about his own lonely life, how he'd poured everything into a business that was struggling to survive. Tom had always believed success meant financial stability. Yet tonight, he felt oddly fulfilled despite being $100 poorer. Before turning in, Tom checked his appointment book for the next day. Only 2 oil changes scheduled. He sighed, knowing he needed to attract more customers to keep his doors open. Maybe he'd try some new advertising or offer a special promotion. As he drifted off to sleep, Tom had no way of knowing that in just 3 days, his simple act of kindness would set in motion events that would transform his life in ways he could never imagine. The universe had been watching, and it was about to respond in kind. 3 days passed in a blur of oil changes and tire rotations at Wilson's Auto Repair. Tom found himself thinking about Lisa and her kids several times, wondering how they were doing but expecting he'd never see them again. That's how it usually went in his line of work. People came with car troubles, he fixed them, and life moved on. Thursday afternoon brought a light drizzle that kept customers away. Tom was catching up on paperwork when the bell above the front door jingled. He looked up to see the mail carrier Diane shaking raindrops from her postal service cap. Afternoon, Tom, she called cheerfully, pulling a stack of envelopes from her bag. Mostly bills today, I'm afraid. Except for this one. Feels personal. She handed over the day's mail with a friendly smile. Tom thanked her, immediately noticing the pale blue envelope sitting atop the stack of white business mail. His name and the shop's address were handwritten in neat penmanship, but there was no return address. Curious, he set aside the bills and carefully opened the mysterious envelope. Inside was a folded newspaper clipping, slightly yellowed with age, and a handwritten letter on matching blue stationery. Tom unfolded the clipping first, revealing a headline from the Ridgewood Gazette dated nearly 15 years earlier. Local hero dies after saving children from burning school bus. Below the headline was a photograph of a smiling, middle-aged Asian man in casual clothes, identified in the caption as David Chen, 42. Tom stared at the photo, feeling an odd sense of recognition stir in his memory. He began reading the article, learning how David Chen had been driving behind a school bus when it crashed and caught fire. Without hesitation, Chen had rushed to help, pulling 7 children to safety before the flames grew too intense. He'd suffered severe burns and smoke inhalation, passing away 3 days later in the hospital. The article quoted several parents calling him a hero who had sacrificed his life for their children. With growing curiosity, Tom turned to the letter and began to read. Dear Tom, you don't know me well, but you saved me and my children the other night when you fixed our car. What you didn't know is that the man in this article, David Chen, was my father. And what's even more remarkable is that one of the children he saved from that burning bus was a 10-year-old boy named Thomas Wilson. Was that you, Tom? My father never got to meet any of the children he saved that day. If you are that same boy, I can't help but feel this wasn't just chance. Maybe this was my father's way of watching over us both. Either way, your kindness reminds me so much of him. There's one more thing I'd like you to have. It belonged to my father, and I've kept it all these years. Somehow I think he would want you to have it now. With deepest gratitude, Lisa Chen Tom's hands trembled as he set the letter down. Memories he hadn't accessed in years suddenly flooded back. The acrid smell of smoke, screaming children, and a man's strong arms lifting him from his seat and carrying him to safety. He remembered being in the hospital afterward, his parents crying with relief, and later attending a memorial service for the man everyone called a hero. That man was David Chen, Lisa's father. Tom had been just a kid then, too young to fully understand what had happened. Over the years, the memory had faded, becoming just a story his parents occasionally referenced. Never had he imagined he would cross paths with the hero's family. With unsteady fingers, Tom reached back into the envelope and found a small object wrapped in tissue paper. Carefully unwrapping it, he revealed a vintage pocket watch, its brass case worn smooth from years of handling. He clicked it open to find the clock face still ticking, the inside of the cover engraved with simple words. Time given in service to others is never wasted. You see, Tom sat motionless, staring at the watch as a lump formed in his throat. The coincidence seemed too perfect to be mere chance. He had helped Lisa without a second thought, never knowing the connection between them. Now, holding this treasured keepsake of the man who had saved his life, Tom felt a circle somehow completing itself. Pete found him like that 10 minutes later, still staring at the watch and newspaper clipping. "You okay, boss?" he asked, setting down his toolbox. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Tom looked up, blinking as if waking from a dream. "Remember that school bus accident when we were kids? The one where that guy pulled everybody out before it exploded?" Pete nodded slowly. "Yeah, my cousin went to school with one of those kids." "Why?" "I was on that bus," Tom said quietly. "And the guy who saved me? His daughter came in here the other night with her broken-down Honda. The single mom I helped for free." Pete's eyes widened. "No way, that's wild, man." "Yeah." Tom carefully closed the pocket watch, feeling its weight in his palm. Pretty wild. The rest of the afternoon passed in a haze for Tom. He went through the motions of closing the shop, his mind replaying memories of that day long ago, trying to remember every detail of the man who'd saved his life. By evening, he knew what he needed to do. Back in his apartment, Tom searched through old boxes until he found a small photo album his mother had put together after the accident. There, among pictures of his childhood, was a newspaper clipping similar to the one Lisa had sent, and a program from David Chen's memorial service. Tom had forgotten his parents had taken him to it, dressed in his Sunday best. He also found something else, a children's thank you card he had made but never delivered to the Chen family. Inside, in childish handwriting, he had written, "Thank you for saving me. I'm sorry you had to go to heaven. I promise I'll be brave like you when I grow up." Tom sat on his living room floor surrounded by these memories, the pocket watch ticking softly beside him. The coincidence of meeting Lisa felt like more than chance. It felt like being given an opportunity to close a circle left open for 15 years. The next morning, Tom arrived at the shop earlier than usual. He carefully placed David Chen's pocket watch in a small display box on the front counter, where the sunlight caught its brass surface. Then he made a phone call to the Golden Spoon Diner. "Could I speak with Lisa Chen, please?" he asked when someone answered. "Tell her it's Tom Wilson from the auto shop." A few minutes later, Lisa's tentative voice came on the line. "Tom, is everything okay?" "Everything's fine," he assured her. "I got your letter. And to answer your question, yes, I was on that bus. Your father saved my life that day." There was a long silence on the other end, followed by what sounded like a stifled sob. "I had a feeling," Lisa finally said. "The moment you told me your full name, something clicked. I just wasn't completely sure." "I'd like to talk more if that's okay with you," Tom said. "Maybe you and the kids could come by the shop? Or we could meet somewhere else if you prefer." "The shop would be fine," Lisa replied. "I'm off tomorrow afternoon." "Around 3? "Perfect," Tom said. feeling a strange mixture of nervousness and anticipation. After hanging up, Tom looked around his small, struggling shop with new eyes. For years he'd been focusing on just getting by, keeping the business afloat without any real purpose beyond survival. Now holding the pocket watch of the man who had given his life saving others, including Tom himself, he felt something shift inside him. Time given in service to others is never wasted. Those words echoed in Tom's mind as he opened his appointment book. Despite the near-empty schedule, he felt a sudden clarity of purpose he hadn't experienced in years. Whatever happened next, he knew his chance encounter with Lisa Chen wasn't really chance at all. It was an opportunity, maybe even a responsibility, to honor the sacrifice made by her father all those years ago. As customers trickled in that day, Tom found himself working with renewed energy, checking and double-checking his work, offering sincere advice rather than pushing for the most profitable repairs. By closing time, he realized he'd made less money but felt more satisfaction than he had in months. Tomorrow, Lisa and her children would return to his shop, and a new chapter would begin, one that had been 15 years in the making. Word spread quickly in small towns, and Ridgewood was no exception. The day after Tom and Lisa's emotional meeting at the auto shop, Tom arrived at work to find an unfamiliar truck parked outside, its driver leaning against the hood waiting for him. "Morning," the man called as Tom approached. "You Tom Wilson? The mechanic who helped Lisa Chen the other night?" Tom nodded cautiously, unlocking the shop door. "That's me. Shop doesn't officially open for another 30 minutes, but if you got car trouble, I can take a look." The man followed Tom inside, glancing around the modest repair shop with interest. "Name's Robert Taylor. I coach Tyler's little league team. Lisa told me what you did for her, and, well, my truck's been making this rattling noise. Thought I'd bring it to you instead of the dealership." Tom relaxed, gesturing toward the coffee pot in the corner. "Help yourself while I grab my tools. Tell me more about this rattling." By the time Pete arrived for his shift, Tom was already underneath Robert's truck, diagnosing a loose heat shield and worn suspension bushings. As the morning progressed, 2 more unfamiliar customers showed up, friends of Lisa, who had heard about Tom's kindness and decided to bring their vehicles to his shop instead of the chain stores they usually frequented. "Busier than usual," Pete commented during a rare quiet moment. He nodded toward David Chen's pocket watch, now displayed prominently on the counter in its small wooden box. "That's got something to do with it?" Tom wiped grease from his hands, considering the question. "Maybe. Lisa mentioned our connection on some neighborhood social media group. Guess people like the story," Pete grinned. "Free advertising. Can't complain about that." By the end of the week, Tom had serviced more vehicles than in the previous month combined. Many customers mentioned knowing Lisa or her father, sharing stories about David Chen's generosity or how he'd helped them years ago. One elderly woman brought cookies along with her car, telling Tom how David had fixed her furnace one winter night without charging her a penny. "He was that kind of man," she explained, placing the cookies next to the pocket watch display. "Always said we're put on this earth to help each other through. Nice to see his spirit living on in his daughter, and in people like you." Tom found himself uncomfortable with the praise but touched by the stories. Each one painted a clearer picture of the man who'd saved his life, making David Chen more than just a fading childhood memory. Through these shared recollections, Tom began to understand the true impact one person could have on an entire community. On Saturday morning, Tom was surprised to see several young men waiting outside the shop before opening time. They introduced themselves as local community college students studying automotive technology. "We heard you might be looking for help," one explained. "Professor Johnson said you're the best mechanic in town, and we could learn a lot working here, even if it's just sweeping floors to start." Tom blinked in surprise. "Professor Johnson? From the technical college?" "Yes, sir. He said you rebuilt his '67 Mustang engine last year. Called it artistry." Tom remembered the project well, a challenging rebuild he'd poured his heart into, never expecting it would lead to anything beyond a satisfied customer. Now, looking at the eager faces of the students, he realized his reputation had been growing without him knowing it. 3 days later, Lisa returned with her answer, and her first suggestion. "If we're going to do this," she said, settling into the rickety chair behind the front desk, "we need proper systems. Look at this." She pulled out a tablet and showed Tom a simple digital scheduling program. This would replace that paper appointment book and automatically send reminder texts to customers. Fewer no-shows, better organization. Tom looked at the screen, then back at Lisa's determined expression. How much? Monthly subscription. But we'd save on missed appointments and wasted time. It'll pay for itself within a month. You haven't even started yet, and you're already spending my money, Tom said, but he was smiling. Lisa raised an eyebrow. Do you want things to run smoothly or not? Tom raised his hands in surrender. I know when I'm beaten. Set it up. That was the first of many changes Lisa implemented over the following weeks. She organized the chaotic filing system, streamlined the parts ordering process, and set up a professional bookkeeping system that gave Tom his first clear picture of the shop's finances in years. You're actually making good money, she told him one evening as they reviewed the monthly reports. But your pricing structure is inconsistent. Some jobs you're practically giving away, while others, those are for people who can afford it, Tom explained. The single parents and elderly folks on fixed incomes get the friends and family rate. Instead of arguing against this approach as Tom expected, Lisa considered it thoughtfully. What if we formalize that? A sliding scale based on need but transparent so everyone understands. Wouldn't that complicate things? Not if we do it right, Lisa said, already sketching ideas. What about a community service option too? People who really can't afford repairs could volunteer hours instead, helping with the children's center van, or other community projects. Tom stared at her, impressed by how quickly she'd understood the heart of what he was trying to build. That's actually brilliant, Lisa smiled, a hint of pride in her eyes. My dad used to do something similar with his electrical work. He called it community economics, making sure everyone got what they needed, regardless of what they could pay. They worked late into the evening developing the concept, their excitement growing as the plan took shape. By closing time, they had created something unique, a business model that honored David Chen's spirit while being financially sustainable. The next few months brought steady growth and refinement. Lisa's office management transformed the shop's operations, while Tom focused on the quality of repairs and mentoring the growing team of young mechanics. Pete thrived in his management role, developing a talent for matching the right technician to each job. The sliding payment scale was implemented with remarkable success, bringing in customers from all walks of life. Those who could afford to pay full price often added extra for the community fund, while those who qualified for reduced rates frequently returned to volunteer their time or skills. One rainy Tuesday, Lisa arrived at work looking troubled. Tom, now attuned to her moods, noticed immediately. Everything okay? He asked when they had a moment alone. Lisa sighed, brushing damp hair from her forehead. Landlord's selling our apartment building. New owners are raising rent by 30%. I've been looking for a new place, but everything in good school districts is way out of my budget. Tom frowned. That's rough. How long do you have? 60 days, Lisa replied, attempting a smile that didn't reach her eyes. We'll figure something out. Always do. Tom nodded, but the news bothered him throughout the day. Lisa and her children had become important to him, more important than he'd been ready to admit. The thought of them struggling or having to move to a less safe neighborhood weighed heavily on him. That evening, after Lisa had left and the shop was quiet, Tom found himself staring at David Chen's pocket watch, seeking inspiration. The inscription caught the light. Time given in service to others is never wasted. What would you do, David? Tom murmured to the empty shop. The answer came to him while driving home. Above the hardware store where Tom rented his small apartment was a larger vacant unit, a 3-bedroom that had once been the owner's family home. It had been empty for months following Harold Baker's move to a retirement community. The next morning, Tom made a call to Harold's son-in-law, the real estate agent who had helped with the shop expansion. By lunchtime, he had a rental agreement in hand and a set of keys in his pocket. Can you stay late tonight? Tom asked Lisa casually that afternoon. There's something I'd like your opinion on. After closing, Tom drove them to the hardware store building, leading a confused Lisa up the back stairs to the apartment door. What's this about? She asked as he unlocked the door. Potential investment, Tom said vaguely. I'd value your business perspective. They stepped into a spacious living room with high ceilings and large windows overlooking the town's main street. Though empty of furniture, the apartment was clean and freshly painted with hardwood floors and built-in bookshelves. "It's a 3-bedroom, Tom explained, leading her through the space. Walking distance to both the elementary school and the shop. Rent's reasonable because Harold wants a long-term tenant he can trust." Lisa wandered through the rooms, her expression shifting from professional assessment to personal longing as she noted the large kitchen and separate study area. "It's lovely, but why are you showing me this?" Tom took a deep breath, suddenly nervous. "I thought you and the kids might like it. The timing seemed right with your current place raising the rent." Lisa stopped, turning to face him with surprise. "You found this for us?" Tom nodded, shoving his hands in his pockets. "The school district is excellent. Tyler could walk to baseball practice at the park. There's even a small garden area out back where Zoe could plant those flowers she's always talking about." Lisa's eyes widened as she realized how much attention he had been paying to her children's interests. "Tom, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," he assured her quickly. "It's just an option. No pressure." But Lisa was already moving through the rooms again, this time with purpose, checking closet space, testing water pressure, examining electrical outlets. Her practical nature reasserted itself even as emotion flickered across her face. "The rent really is reasonable?" she asked finally. "Harold's giving me a friends and family rate," Tom confirmed. "And it's month to month, so no long-term commitment." Lisa looked at him thoughtfully. "This is extremely kind of you, Tom. But I need to be clear about something. Is this a business arrangement or is it something else?" The directness of her question caught Tom off guard. In truth, he hadn't fully examined his own motivations. The past months had blurred the lines between business partnership and deeper connection. He found himself caring about Lisa and her children in a way that went beyond friendship. But he'd been careful not to press for more, knowing she had enough challenges without adding relationship complications. "It's me trying to help someone important to me," he said honestly. "Someone who's changed my life for the better. Whatever else it might become, that's up to us to figure out, isn't it?" Lisa's expression softened. "Fair enough. In that case, I accept. Pending approval from my highly opinionated children, of course." Tom grinned, relief washing over him. "Of course. They're the real decision makers." As they locked up and headed back to their cars, Lisa paused, turning to face Tom in the gentle evening light. "You know, when my car broke down that night, I thought it was just one more thing going wrong in a long string of bad luck," she said quietly. "I never imagined it would lead to all this." Tom glanced up at the apartment windows, then back to Lisa. "Funny how life works sometimes, isn't it? One small moment can change everything." "My dad used to say there are no coincidences," Lisa replied with a small smile. "Just circles we can't see completing themselves." As they stood there in the gathering twilight, Tom felt another circle nearing completion, one that had begun with a burning school bus 15 years earlier and continued with a broken-down Honda on a summer evening. Where it would lead next, he couldn't say for certain. But for the first time in years, he was truly looking forward to finding out. 1 year had passed since the night Lisa's car broke down outside Tom's garage. The anniversary wasn't marked on any calendar, but both of them remembered as the date approached. How could they not? That chance encounter had transformed both their lives in ways neither could have imagined. On a bright Saturday morning, Tom stood surveying the parking lot of what was now Chen & Wilson Automotive, watching as employees and customers mingled at the Community Appreciation Barbecue. The shop had grown beyond anyone's expectations, expanding to 3 locations across the county while maintaining the unique business model Lisa had helped develop. "Penny for your thoughts," came a voice behind him. Tom turned to find Lisa approaching, carrying 2 paper plates loaded with food from the grill. "Just taking it all in," he replied, accepting the plate she offered. Hard to believe how much has changed in a year. They found a quiet spot at the edge of the celebration, settling on a bench beneath the shade of an oak tree. From this vantage point, they could see the entire gathering. Pete manning the grill with practiced skill, Harold Baker chatting with customers, and the team of mechanics and O.F.I. staff who now made up their growing business family. "Tyler's baseball team is crushing the competition," Tom commented, spotting the boy demonstrating his pitching technique to a group of admiring younger children. At 12, Tyler had grown several inches over the past year and developed confidence that went beyond his athletic abilities. Coach says he's got real talent, Lisa agreed proudly. And did you see Zoe's science project? First prize. Tom nodded toward where the 9-year-old was earnestly explaining her display to anyone who would listen. Future engineer, that one. A comfortable silence fell between them as they ate, both contemplating the journey that had brought them here. Lisa had completed her nursing prerequisites with excellent grades and had been accepted to the full program starting in the fall. The flexible schedule at the shop had allowed her to balance work, school, and family, while the apartment above the hardware store had become a true home for her and the children. Tom had transformed too. The lonely mechanic who once worked simply to pay bills had found purpose beyond his own survival. The shop's community service program had expanded, now including a scholarship fund for technical college students and regular maintenance clinics where people could learn basic car care. They'd even partnered with the high school to create an internship program for students interested in automotive careers. Your father would be proud, Tom said suddenly, voicing the thought that had been on his mind all morning. Of you. Of all this. He gestured toward the thriving business around them. Lisa's eyes grew momentarily misty. I think he would be. Especially of you. Tom looked at her surprised. Me? You're the one who started this whole chain reaction with one act of kindness, Lisa reminded him. Everything else flowed from that moment. Tom glanced down at his watch, not David Chen's pocket watch, which remained displayed prominently in the shop, but a simple timepiece Lisa had given him for his birthday. Its inscription echoed the spirit of her father's. Every moment of kindness creates ripples without end. I had help, Tom said modestly, nodding toward where Robert Taylor, Lisa's friend who had been Tom's first new customer, was now organizing a children's relay race. The whole community showed up, because you showed them how, Lisa insisted. People want to be part of something good. Sometimes they just need someone to take the first step. Before Tom could respond, they were interrupted by Pete, who approached with an elderly couple Tom didn't recognize. Sorry to bother you, Pete said, but these folks came all the way from Millbrook to meet you both. They read about the shop in the Regional Business Journal. The couple introduced themselves as the owners of a small garage in the neighboring town, explaining they were nearing retirement age with no succession plan. We've been running our shop for 35 years, the man explained. Don't want to just sell to some chain that'll raise prices and cut corners. When we read about what you've built here, the community focus, the sliding scale, the training programs, well, we wondered if you might be interested in discussing some kind of arrangement. Tom and Lisa exchanged surprised glances. They had discussed possible expansion but hadn't actively pursued it. 3 locations were already keeping them busy. We should definitely talk more, Lisa said diplomatically. Why don't you join the celebration and we can set up a proper meeting next week? As Pete led the couple away to introduce them to Harold, who handled most of their business negotiations, Tom raised an eyebrow at Lisa. 4 locations? Are we crazy? Lisa smiled thoughtfully. Maybe not crazy, but definitely at a crossroads. This is becoming bigger than just a repair shop, Tom. It's turning into a movement. She was right, Tom realized. What had begun as a simple auto repair business had evolved into something more meaningful, a model for how business could serve community needs while remaining profitable. People were taking notice, not just locally, but regionally. The Business Journal article had sparked interest from other towns, and they'd even been contacted by a national automotive association about sharing their approach. We should make it official, Tom said suddenly. Lisa looked at him curiously. Make what official? Us, this, Tom gestured between them. The business partnership for starters. You've been working on your accounting degree online on top of everything else. You understand the financial side better than I ever will. We should be equal partners on paper, not just in practice. Lisa studied him for a moment. Are you sure? You built this place from nothing, and it would have stayed nothing without you, Tom countered. I was barely keeping the lights on before you came along. Now look at it. He waved toward the bustling celebration. This is as much yours as mine. More, maybe. Lisa was quiet for a long moment, her eyes taking in the scene before them. Okay, she said finally. Equal partners it is. Tom nodded, satisfied but suddenly nervous about his next question. Their relationship had evolved over the past year. moving gradually from business associates to friends to something deeper, neither had fully defined. Tom had become a fixture in the children's lives, helping with homework, attending school events, teaching Tyler about cars, and encouraging Zoe's scientific curiosity. He'd joined their family traditions while bringing new ones of his own. They functioned in many ways like a family unit, yet they'd been careful about crossing certain lines, both protective of the children's feelings and conscious of how a failed romance might complicate their business relationship. "I've been thinking about something else too," Tom said, gathering his courage. Before he could continue, they were interrupted by Zoe, who came running up with excitement written all over her face. "Mom! Tom, you have to come see. Mr. Baker brought the old photos of Grandpa from when he was on the Chamber of Commerce. You're in one of them, Tom, from when you were a kid at the memorial service." Both adults rose to follow the excited child, the moment temporarily suspended. The crowd had gathered around a display of photographs Harold had arranged on a table, showing David Chen's involvement in the community over the years. There, among faded pictures of ribbon cuttings and charity events, was a newspaper photo from the memorial service following the school bus accident. In the background, barely noticeable, stood a solemn young Tom with his parents. "Isn't it amazing?" Harold was saying to the gathered crowd. "Full circle, that's what this is." David would be over the moon seeing how his legacy has grown. As people murmured in agreement, Tom felt Lisa's hand slip into his. The gesture wasn't unusual. They'd grown comfortable with such casual contact over months of working closely together. But something about this moment felt different, weighted with significance. The celebration continued around them, but Tom led Lisa away from the crowd, back to their quiet spot beneath the oak tree. It was time to finish what he'd started to say. "I've been thinking," he began again, "about the apartment." Lisa looked puzzled. "What about it? Is Harold selling the building?" "No, nothing like that. It's just," Tom took a deep breath, "my place downstairs is too small. Has been for a while." Understanding dawned in Lisa's eyes, but she waited for him to continue. "The kids are growing fast. Tyler's going to be a teenager soon, and with you starting nursing school full-time in the fall, having another adult in the house may make things easier." Lisa's expression remained carefully neutral. "Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting?" Tom nodded, suddenly finding it difficult to maintain eye contact. "I'm not trying to rush anything. We could start with me just moving into the spare room if that's more comfortable, but I want you to know I'm all in. With the business, with the kids, with us, whatever that looks like." Lisa was quiet for so long that Tom began to worry he'd overstepped. Then she squeezed his hand gently. "You know, for a guy who rebuilt an entire business from the ground up, you can be remarkably cautious," she said with a small smile. "The kids have been asking when you're going to just move in already for months. Tyler specifically mentioned he's tired of you having to go back downstairs for clean clothes when you fall asleep on our couch watching movies." Relief flooded through Tom, followed quickly by joy. "So that's a yes?" "It's a what took you so long?" Lisa replied, her smile widening. Tom laughed, the tension releasing from his shoulders. "I didn't want to assume. This past year has been a lot of change for all of us. I wanted to be sure." "Tom," Lisa said gently, "from the moment you fixed my car without expecting anything in return, you've shown us who you are. Some people take years to reveal their true character. You did it in a single evening." She gestured toward the celebration around them. The thriving business, the community they'd built, the life they'd created together. "None of this is an accident. My father saved your life for a reason. You came into our lives for a reason." Tom glanced toward the shop where David Chen's pocket watch sat in its display, still ticking after all these years. "Time given in service to others is never wasted," he quoted softly. "Exactly," Lisa agreed, "and we've got plenty more time to give." As they rejoined the celebration, Tom felt a sense of completion unlike anything he'd experienced before. The journey that had begun with a simple act of kindness, fixing a stranger's car without expectation of return, had transformed not just his business, but his entire life. He watched as Tyler waved him over to join the baseball demonstration, while Zoe called for Lisa to explain something about her science project. This was his family now, brought together by circumstances that seemed too perfect to be mere coincidence. Tom had once been a lonely mechanic struggling to keep his shop afloat. Now he was a business owner, A mentor, a community leader, and most importantly, a father figure to two amazing kids and a partner to an extraordinary woman, all because he'd chosen kindness when presented with the opportunity. As Tom joined Tyler on the makeshift pitching mound, he caught Lisa's eye across the gathering. She smiled at him, a smile full of promise for the future they would build together. In that moment, Tom understood with perfect clarity what David Chen had known all along. The truest wealth comes not from what we acquire, but from what we give away. And by that measure, Tom Wilson was now the richest man in town.